Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library. I thought I'd do another, well, I call it easy breezy, something that's for all ages, really. I wanted something that you could do maybe with the kids or the grandkids while they're at home from school that will appeal, hopefully, to all ages, from children up to teenagers to adults. Um, I try to do something a couple of things like this every summer so that we have something that we can kind of do that's fun and also pretty and suitable for everyone. And this, I think, is it can go across. It can be for men or for women, depending on what kind of beads that you use. And it uses a minimal amount of supplies that you can get, I do believe, at any craft store. We're using seed beads and 22 gauge wire. I'm using 22 gauge wire. You can use 20 gauge wire as well. I probably wouldn't go any smaller than 22. And remember, the larger the gauge, the smaller the wire. We're going to be making chaos beads. I've done this before with earrings. I've never, as far as I can remember, done it for an entire piece of jewelry. I've done it as a focal piece, but we're going to actually make a necklace out of it. So we're going to be using the 22 gauge wire. By the time we get it all chaos wrapped, it will be very hard and very strong. We're going to be weaving seed beads in with it. Those two things you should be able to get pretty much everywhere. I think you might even be able to get them at like Walmart. You can definitely get them places like Amazon. So it's really easy to come by. Those two items and jump rings are all that you need. We're going to use our usual pliers, our round nose pliers. The barrels are start larger at the bottom near the hilt and get smaller as they reach the tip. The square nose pliers are actually slightly rounded on the outside, but they're completely flat on the inside, and they should not have any grips or ridges on the inside. Those are there in some pliers so that it gives you more, I guess, more purchase and you're able to hold on to things better. But because we always use soft wire in everything that I do, that's going to damage your wire. So you want to make sure that you get the kind that doesn't have any ridges in there. And you should be able to see that when you buy even if you buy it online, they usually have pictures and we'll show you what the inside looks like. If you see anything that looks like ridges in there, don't get those. Just go to another seller and get what they have. The third thing that you're going to need is a pair of wire cutters. Self-explanatory, cutting the wire. One thing that you're going to need out of the ordinary is a narrow rod of some kind. It needs to be very narrow, so I don't think a knitting needle would be sufficient because they're wider. Um, so just a little narrow rod that's about 3 millimeters in size, four maybe millimeters. If you put it on a ruler, it should come up to about 3 or 4 millimeters on the ruler. It doesn't have to be this long, but just something that you can use to wrap the wire around to make your bead. It only needs to be about 4 or 5 inches long. That's it. But this is what I have, and that's what I'm working with. The last thing that you're going to need is a ruler to measure everything out. That's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and get down here to the map and get started on our piece. Okay, the first thing that I've done is cut 2 feet of wire. That's 2/3 of a yard of wire to make my bead. Now, it depends on how big you make your beads or how small you make your beads, but for my purposes, I'm going to end up with a bead that's approximately about 3/4 of an inch from end to end before you get to the wrap. If you add the wrap or the loop in there, it's going to come to a full about, I'm measuring one that I've already made, is going to measure out to about 1.25 inches. So I want to make my actual coil that I'm going to be chaos wrapping around I want that to be about 3/8 to a half inch long. So I've cut 2/3 of a yard of wire. I'm going to place my wire on my rod. I'm going to give myself about an inch of wire that I can use to hold on to for while I'm wrapping. And I'm going to start wrapping that wire around the rod, nice and tight. Just start wrapping that around. I want the coils to be close together, nice and close. I think when I first did this, I ended up with like 12 wraps, but I don't remember, and I wouldn't even go by that because it depends on how closely you wrap them and how big your rod is. 3 or 4 millimeters when you measure this tip is enough. And all you need to do is do your wraps and then measure it every once in a while on a ruler to see if you have your 3/8 to a half an inch or bigger if you want, or smaller if you want. So right now I am measuring on the millimeter side. I don't want to do that. So right now I have about, I'm already there, almost 3/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is use this short tail to wrap around to get the rest of it. And that should take me up to almost half an inch. Now you can wrap this or you can just rotate. You can rotate your rod if you don't want to have to try to wrap it around. It's up to you. Yeah, I'm going to end up with a good half inch, I think. And then once you get to where you just have a little tip left, just use your square pliers to push that down against the rod as closely as possible. Okay. Then I'm pushing my little coils together as tight as I can get them. That's why it's good to wrap them as closely together as you can, then you don't have to do much of this. But it's going to be a little springy, so that's fine. So let's see what I had. I'm looking at approximately, ooh, perfect. 3/8 of an inch, almost. And give it one more little wrap around. And that will do it. There. So now I have my little coil that I'm going to use to, let's get this back. I want to explain. I have a very narrow window of working space because we are adding closed captions to all the tutorials for people that are hearing impaired. And they've already told me that I need to stay further up towards the top of the camera instead of at the bottom. And I'm not used to that. I'm used to working down here. And then when I do that, the closed captions cover up my work. So I have to get used to working up here or closer to the center. And I have to keep an eye on that. So hopefully I don't drift off camera too much. Okay, enough of that little public service announcement. The next thing that I'm going to do is start wrapping my chaos. Start doing my chaos wrapping. So what I'm going to do is take the rest of my wire and I'm going to start making loops on top of my coil. And for this, I can just hold my wire steady and hold onto my wire and turn my little rod here to form the loops. And I just do that a few times around. Isn't that neat? Just give it a few turns around. And again, it's very chaotic. It's right in the name. And then once I have a few of them on there, I wrap the wire on top of my coil. I don't want to do it on the sides because I don't want to make it any bigger. just to anchor those loops. And then I'm going to continue to wrap. And you don't have to wrap all the same direction. You can wrap in one direction and then switch direction to give it a little more of an interesting look. You can make them bigger, you can make them smaller, but do notice that I'm keeping my thumb on it. I'm trying to keep them nicely pushed down. And then once I've filled up my wire, and I'm also moving around the coil, I'm not doing it all on one side. So I'm turning in a circle with my rod. I'm making my loops with my wire. I'm pushing down with my thumb. Everything's working here. And when I get a few of them in, I wrap the wire around the coil in order to lock those loops in to place. Again, still pushing down with my thumb to get nice and, oh, I hope I'm not making you dizzy with all of this spinning. Nice and close and tight against my coil. And then once I got enough little loops on here that I've covered up all parts of my coil, you're still going to see the coil through it. That's a given, but you're going to keep building on it, and that's going to help cover the coil up, your little base. So once I've kind of filled up all of the coil with some wraps, I'm going to start adding beads. So let's bring that around. I'm going to hold on to that and bring my wire around, and I'm going to grab some seed beads. Yay. Make this nice and colorful. All right, grab this blue one and slide it on the wire. I'm just doing these one at a time. Put one on, let it drop down there. Slide a little, get it nice and snug in there. And I'm gonna make another loop. You can make it around the bead just to hold it in. Yeah. And I'm gonna do another wrap around the coil. And I'm gonna grab another bead. Ooh, there's a nice little space right there I'd like to push it down into. Let's put this pretty pink one on. Let's get that on there. And yeah, just settle that right in here. I think I'll scoot it over a smidge away from the blue one. Yeah, let's put it there. And push that down in there. And wrap in the other direction around my little bead. Pushing everything down. Let's grab another bead. There's a nice space over here that I can put a bead in. Put this yellow one on. Stick them on there. Yeah. Ooh, right down in that little space. I'm gonna wrap this around that little loop. Again, it's a chaos wrap, so there's no real rhyme or reason to how I'm wrapping here. I'm just making sure everything's nicely anchored and chaotic and pretty. Get that over there. Push that down. Nice. Wrap that around. I'm going to wrap that around the pink one. And let's settle right over here. Oh, there's a nice big spot that I can put a bead in. Right there on top of this. Nice. Nice little spot. What color do I want? You know, sometimes I get really creative and I'll poke my wire up through the little spot that I want my bead to go. Make sure you hold on to your wire so everything doesn't shift out of shape. Pull that up there, going on, get in there. There we go. Squeezing that down. Wrap this around the blue one again. And get it back over where I want it. Right in this empty space. Ooh, what color do I want now? I've got blue and I've got pink and I've got yellow. I think it's time for a red one. So let's grab this red one. Let's put that on. Okay. Come on, cooperate with me. Get on there. There. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. I'm going to wrap around the bead. There we go. Nice and snug. Sorry, this rod is so long that I have to keep moving it out of the way of my camera. Okay, let's wrap that around. Ooh, I see another spot right there where I can put a bead. Let's just do that. Let's put it on there and then I'll wrap it around the rod. I'm going to put this little baby blue one on. I'm running out of wire, so there's not a whole lot more I can do. All right, I put that little baby blue one in there. Let's wrap around the bead. There we go. Do I have any more open space? There's a little space there and a little space there. Let's pop one in right here. What color do I want? Oh, I have a white one. That's unusual. Let's pop that one on, see what it looks like. It might get lost against the silver. That's not too bad. Yeah, let's leave it because I have so much other bright stuff on here. Let's leave that in. And I'm thinking I want to put one right there too. Why want to do that? Yeah, let's put a second. I'm not sure how that's going to work. Let's wrap around the pink bead and come back around the white bead. And let's see if I can pop one in right there. Let me check. Oh, there's a space there. I'm going to put one over there and wrap that. I just like to fill in my spaces. So I'm going to slide that wire. I'm going to weave it in between these wires just to get it to where I want it to go. I'm going to grab my pliers for that. Pull that little tip out. I need to grab it. There we go. Get over there. There. And I'm going to fill this little hole in with what color? Green, or should I go purple? Scoot you over a little bit. Yeah. Let's go with the green. Pop that on. Nice. And I think that's about all I can do with what I've got here. So I'm going to finish it off. So the way I'm going to finish it off is I have a little tiny bit of wire here. I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to curl it under and direct it under here. And I'm going to push it in between my wires here. Just make a little loop. Get that little tip, loop it down so that it's nicely locked in. And there's my chaos bead. It looks exactly like, or, I think I heard somebody call them tornado beads or something. It looks like either one, but isn't that awesome? That is our chaos bead. Take it off the rod, and there it is. I love it. Nice. And because you keep it on the rod, that leaves you with the opening for you to string your wire through and make it into a link. Bring this down a little closer. Isn't that neat? Okay, let's make it into a link now. So what I need for that, you need to measure your bead. Let's see how large my bead ended up being. It is from end to end, not quite almost 3/4 of an inch. And by the time I put my loop on there on each side, it's going to be a good inch. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to grab another piece of 22 gauge wire. What you need to do is have a good, oh, I'm not finished. I'm almost finished. You're going to take a good inch and about 1.25 inches on each side in order to make your wrapped loop. And you need to measure how big your bead is. Mine is about 3/4 of an inch. So I need 1 inch to 1.25 inches on each side. So that's about 2.5 plus the 3/4 would make it 3.25. Is that correct? 1, 2.5, and 3.25. Yes. All right, so I need 3.25 inches of wire. Actually, I know for my purposes and the size that I make my loops that I really only need about 3. But if you're feeling like you need some extra, give yourself that extra. And then if you do that once or twice and you see that you're cutting little pieces off that are going to end up getting thrown away, then just just bring it down to a smaller size. All right, so I've got my wire and I'm going to bend about 1 inch back on one side. Get it back. I'm going to make a loop and I'm going back here to the back because I'm using 6mm jump rings to link everything together. And I want my loops to be about the same size or close to the same size just for continuity. So I'm going to go ahead and take the short tail of wire, place it in between the jaws of my pliers. I'm going back almost to the back of my pliers so that I can get the size loop that I want. All pliers are not created equal, so you're going to have to kind of use trial and error to see how far back you need to go on your pliers to get the size length that you want. So I've got the small tail of wire in between the jaws of my pliers, and the side of my pliers is resting against the long tail. Then I'm going to bring that short tail over the top of my pliers and down the side until it's running parallel with the long tail. Then I'm going to hold on to my wire. Without shifting the wire, I'm going to open my pliers up, reposition the empty barrel out of my way, clamp back down, try to keep that as steady as possible, and bring that short tail under the pliers and out to the side, like so. And that gives me my loop. There. Let's try to focus on this guy. Okay, and that gives me my loop. And now I'm going to wrap it closed. So I'm going to take my square pliers, hold on to my wire, and you use the square pliers to hold it because if you use the round pliers, you can put little dents in your wire, and you don't want that. And if you scoot your loop back to the center of your pliers, you have better grip on it without having to squeeze too tightly. If you put it out here on the tip, it's going to wiggle around. So I would suggest that you move it back towards the center of your pliers and then wrap that small tail around the long tail. 1 and times. Now, if you want more wrap on there, wrap it more than 1.5 times, especially if you don't want to have to cut anything off and waste your wire. Keep wrapping. It depends on the look that you're going for. But for me, I just need 1.5. Then I'm going to cut that little tail off, get it as close as you can to the wraps, and then use my square pliers to push that sharp tip down so that it won't scratch you when you're trying to wear this or snag your clothes or anything. And just take your time, get that pushed down. I always check with my finger to see if I can still feel it. If I can feel it, I just keep working with it. So, yes, there we go. There we go. And now I'm going to add my chaos bead. I'm going to find the opening where my rod was, slide my wire through. There we go. Now, that is ornate enough, but for me, I want a little extra. So I'm going to add a bead. Hey, let's add that bead on there and slide it on. Nice. Isn't that cute? I love it. Yay. There we go. So much bright stuff going on, it's getting confused. So let's go ahead and put a bead on the other side. And look at that. Cute. Now let's go ahead and make a nice loop on the other side. Bend my wire back to the side, over to the side. Slide my wire in between the jaws of my pliers, back in about the same place as close as you can get as you did the first time. Wrap my tail over the top of the pliers and down until it won't go any further because my bead's in the way. Then I'm going to hold on to the wire and the bead, open my pliers up, reposition that empty barrel out of the way, and bring that tail of wire in between the bead and the pliers. Just guide it over there. And then I like to roll the wire, the loop down until it's right on top of my bead, like that. No space in between. Grab my square pliers again. I like to always also check, make sure my loops look like they're about the same size, as close as I can get to the same size of my loops. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to wrap that little tail between the pliers and my bead. 1.5 times again. And I'm going to clip off that end. Try not to clip any of your other wires. Clip that off, holding on to the tail while you do so, so it doesn't go flying across the room. And then push down that little tip. And it's easier to do the second one because it hides in between the others, in between the other beads. And you have something to hold on to while you're pushing it down. Nice. And there's my little bead, ready to be linked to other little beads. Isn't that cute? Cute, cute, cute. Okay, so now how do we attach them? Okay, so what we're going to do is make, I could have just made a chain, but again, I do like ornate. So I'm going to make a little beaded, do a little beaded jump ring. So I'm going to grab a 6mm jump ring. In my case, you can use larger jump rings. A smaller jump ring is going to be difficult to put a bead on. So if you go with a smaller millimeter size of jump ring, I don't know if you'll be able to fit beads on it because these are 6/0 beads, which means they're about 4mm. They will just fit on this jump ring. And yeah, these are 4mm beads, 6mm jump ring. And these beads will just fit on there. So you'll have to adjust sizes if you decide to go with a larger or smaller jump ring. Actually, 6/0 is the biggest you can get with a seed bead. Anyway, I'm talking too much. So let's go ahead and open up our jump ring. So I like to use the either the two plier method or the plier, one thumb method, or you can use your fingers if you're able to do that. I'm going to show you the two plier method because it's easier for you to see that. So I have my square pliers facing in. Here is the opening up here at the top. I'm calling it the top, away from me. And then I have my square pliers on the side pointing in. Then I'm going to take my round pliers and have them pointing up and down and twist my jump ring open. That's it. Just twist it open. Then I'm going to grab one of my seed beads and I'm going to slide it onto my jump ring. Then I'm going to take another seed bead and slide that onto my jump ring. Now, I'm using two. You can use one if you would rather do that. You don't have to use two, but I'm using two. So I've got my two jump rings on there. I mean, my two seed beads on there, and I'm going to attach that to my chaos bead. So I'm going to add that on and I'm going to twist it closed. Now this is the finger and plier method. I'm just going to twist it closed, just kind of balance it against my finger and twist with my plier until I get my jump ring closed. And there we have it. And now I'm going to attach that to 3 empty jump rings. I'm going to make a miniature chain. So let's grab 3 of those. Now I want you to be aware of something. When you get your jump rings, they may not be flush together. I don't know if you can see this very well, but these are kind of bypassing each other. The tips are not meeting, which is what I want in an open jump ring that's been closed. So I'm going to take my pliers, one on each side, and I'm going to twist it open. Then I'm going to pull very slightly, pull the rings apart, and open and close them until my little tips are meeting instead of bypassing. Nice. Check all of your seed beads. I mean, all of your jump rings. I keep confusing that. Check all of your jump rings to make sure that they are properly connected. There you go. Nice. I need one more. Oh, this one's really bypassing. So open and squiggle and wiggle. Get those ends, those tips together. Nice. Now I'm going to make a miniature chain of 3 jump rings. So I'm going to open one jump ring up. That's the finger and plier method. Open that up, and I'm going to put 2 closed jump rings on it. And then I'm going to twist it closed. And then I'm going to separate these. And now I have a little chain. There. So now I'm going to attach that to the other side of my chaos bead. Twist it open and slide that into the loop of my chaos bead and twist it closed again. And this is my link. And where do I go from there? Well, now I'm going to make a full chain for my necklace. But before I do that, I'm going to attach this to the rest of my necklace. So this is what we have. Isn't that lovely? So what I need to do is open up my little beaded jump ring. Gotta find the opening. There it is. Grab my square pliers. And twist that open and slide my little ring from my bead that's on the necklace that I've already started. Slide that in there and twist my jump ring closed, nice and tight. Okay. And now I've got my 3 plain jump rings that I've got here, and I've made several more beaded jump rings and attached them to the seed bead jump rings. Now this was my pattern. You do not have to do it this way. But what I have is 3 plain ones, almost finished. I have 3 plain jump rings, 1 beaded jump ring, 3 plain jump rings, 1 beaded jump ring, 3 plain jump rings, 1 beaded jump ring. That is the pattern that I decided to use. You do not have to follow suit. You can make your chain any way you want. This is mine. So I'm going to go ahead and open up one of my empty jump rings and attach it to my beaded jump ring that's on one end. Slide that in there and twist it closed. Make sure it's nicely closed. And then I'm going to add my little beaded chain to a plain chain to finish it out. So the way I made those 3 plain, use those 3 plain jump rings to make a chain, now you just make a nice long one. You just keep doing that till you have a long chain that will give you the length that you want for your necklace. You can make this longer or shorter depending on your preferences. I think this looks better up closely around the neck, maybe inside of a shirt or on a t-shirt. I think that would look amazing. So let's go ahead and open up my chain jump ring and attach that to my beaded jump ring and close it. There we go. And there is my necklace. The only thing I have to do now is put some kind of a closure on it. And for that, I'm using a lobster clasp. And all I need to do is attach that lobster clasp to one of my jump rings. Just open that up. Slide my lobster clasp in there. Oops, let's do that. Let me get the focus way up here. Okay. Slide my lobster clasp in and twist it closed. And you just put that jump ring through the little tiny ring that's on the bottom of your lobster clasp. And then you have a pre-made clasp receptor in your jump ring. And I'm going to fix this because it's not quite as close together as I want. There we go. And then all I need to do is open up my jump ring and slide it into, open up my lobster clasp and slide it into my jump ring. Now, the good thing about this is this nice little chain is that I can fasten it there, but if I want it shorter, I can fasten it down here and just let the rest of that hang down in the back. So I can make this any length I want. Isn't that awesome? Yay. Okay, so let's try this on a form and see what it looks like, because I need to know. Okay, I couldn't resist. I had to put it on myself because this is one of the cutest things ever. I absolutely love this. Now, Mine came out to be about 19 inches from end to end, but I hooked it up further so that it would fit higher up. And this is what I have. It is adorable. I think this would be great for both mom and grandmother and child. I think everybody would love and be able to wear this, depending on the kinds of beads that you use and the colors that you use. This could be a great necklace for guys. Just imagine this in darker colors like navy blue or black or brown or little wooden, little 4 millimeter wooden round beads or shells or coconut shells or something like that on this. That could make a great men's or unisex necklace in a little bit of a darker vibe. So this is what we have today. I hope you enjoyed this making, and I hope you will enjoy making it. I hope you will make one. Please let me know one way or the other what you thought about the tutorial and whether or not you'd like to see more of these. I might try to do one more for kids before the summer is out. One more that is kid friendly before the summer is out. We'll see. And I'd really like to know your thoughts. So if you want to get in touch with me, look down in the description and you'll see my email address. You can send comments and pictures to me via email. You can send pictures and comments also to me at the library Facebook page, which the information for that is also down in the description, or you can leave comments right here on the YouTube page. One way or another, I hope I hear from you. I hope that you're not someplace in a situation where it's too hot. It's cooled down a little bit here. It's only in the 90s in Georgia. So that's very nice. But just take care of yourself, stay hydrated, use the air conditioning or fans or whatever you need to use in order to stay safe. And until next time, have a great week, have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.